In this presentation, we will take a look at multiple choice questions related to governmental accounting, going through those questions and then practicing test-taking skills with them. First question. Part of the journal entry to record the budget for the general fund is either A, a credit to estimated revenues, B, a debit to encumbrances, C, a credit to fund balance, or D, a credit to appropriations. Let's go through this again using the process of elimination. Part of the journal entry to record the budget for the general fund is. Now, this is one of those items where we're going to record the budget. We're going to actually have a journal entry recording the budget. Anytime you have a journal entry, I recommend writing out the journal entry because that's going to help you to basically see the debits and credits when they only ask for one account. That's actually kind of tricky because the balancing process is going to help you to know which accounts are going to be debited, which accounts are going to be credited. So the way you want to think about it, I would actually write down the journal entry, the full journal entry for the budget. And that typically is going to be that there's going to be something related to revenue. Revenue has a credit balance, and therefore the budgetary account is going to have a debit balance. So I would just say estimated revenue. It's going to be the opposite. Estimated, I'll say ER, estimated revenue. Of course, the writing's not too good here. And then I would just put an X or a dollar sign for whatever it is, just to jot this down so you can get this in your mind. The other side is expenses, expenditures for a budget. And the budgetary account related to it is called appropriations, which is a bit funny of a term, but you would think estimated expenses or something like that, but no, appropriations. Expenses have a debit, so the appropriations is going to have a credit. And then if the revenue is greater than the expenses, you'd have the difference. That's going to go to some type of kind of equity account, or what we would think of equity, or some type of assets minus liability type of account. And that's going to be the budgetary fund balance. So we'll just say fund balance, some type of equity account. So keeping that in mind, we're going to go through these and say, okay, part of the journal entry to record the budget for the general fund is a credit to the estimated revenues. Now that's the tricky one because they're saying it's going to be a credit when it's going to be really a debit. And if you write it down, you're more likely to pick that up. And it's tricky because the estimated revenue is opposite from the normal revenue. And then B says a debit to encumbrances. So encumbrances is another budgetary account, kind of, but it's not related to actually recording the initial budget. So that's not going to be one of the accounts. C says a credit to the fund balance. And we do have a credit to it's a fund balance, but we want the budgetary fund balance. It's a little bit tricky. And D says a credit to the appropriations. So we actually have the credit to appropriations here. And again, C sounds familiar. It sounds like it should work, but one, it says fund balance rather than budgetary fund balance, and it could be possible that we have a budget where the appropriations. What if the appropriations were greater than the revenue? Then we might have a debit to the budgetary fund balance if it's possible. So we're going to say that D would be the proper answer, final answer. Part of the journal entry to record the budget for the general fund is D, a credit to appropriations. Next question. Which account is credited when a purchase order is approved? Either A, encumbrances, B, encumbrances outstanding, C, vouchers payable, or D, appropriations. Let's go through this again using the process of elimination. Which account is credited when a purchase order is approved? Now, again, you might want to write this down, but this is going to be two accounts that are going to be involved here. And this is a bit different because we have the purchase order, which is something we don't typically record in a for-profit accounting. So when we have the purchase order, for-profit accounting, we typically make the purchase order, we send it out to the vendor, but we don't record it in the books. And on the governmental accounting, we're going to record it, though, because we want to be more transparent. Even though the expense hasn't been recognized and nothing's been paid yet, we want to basically see that the commitment has been there. We want to be more kind of transparent in that format. So what we're going to do is actually record this. The transaction to record it is going to be a debit to encumbrances, not expenditures, because we can't record the expense yet. I would think of this as basically a holding account. So we got encumbrances, and I can't write with this thing, and that's going to be a debit. And then the other side is going to be encumbrances outstanding. Encumbrances outstanding. And again, I can't write with this, but if you have the paper and pencil, you want to write some type of journal entry to get basically the debits and credits right on it. And this is the transaction that's going to be reversed when you actually record the related expenditure, which is kind of like the expense. So if we go through the answers, then we're going to say that we have encumbrances. The encumbrances are going to be debited, not credited. So that's not the one. And the second one says be encumbrances outstanding. That's the one that's going to be credited when the purchase order is in essence recorded. So B is going to be our final answer. The C says vouchers payable. That's going to be recorded when we actually have the payable. And that's going to have to happen when we get the inventory, because when we send out the purchase order, we haven't gotten anything yet, and therefore we don't really owe anything at that point in time. We don't record the payable at the time of the purchase order, whether it be for profit or not. And then the appropriations is the budgetary account. That's already been recorded. That's on the books. And now we're basically assigning the appropriation to the proper estimated according to the purchase order.